My name's Laura Hay. I'm from William Grant & Sons. I've been employed as their whisky specialist. I look after all their single malt Scotch whiskies in the family, in the range. I am probably the biggest whisky geek in the world, self-proclaimed whisky geek. I absolutely love whisky. I've worked in the whisky industry for almost 14 years. So the first thing we do when we're tasting whisky is we tend to look at the colour. Kind of gives you an idea of what type of oak you've used to mature the whisky in. There's also checking the body. You just swirl the whisky around the glass like so. Then you watch for the legs. The legs are the teardrops that start to run down, and if they're thin and they're fast, that means it's going to be a light-bodied or a light characteristic to the whisky. If they're quite slow and running down and quite thick, that's going to be an oilier characteristic. So just going to give you an idea of the mouthfeel. But the next stage is the nosing of the whisky, which is probably the most important part. And I recommend smelling your whisky at least 3 or 4 times, because the first time you put your nose in the glass and inhale, you're just going to get the alcohol to start with, and that's going to catch at the back of the throat there. So the next time you go back, your nose starts to get used to that, and it starts to pick up all the different aromas that are coming out the glass. But once you've smelt your whisky or nosed your whisky a good while, taste it, and just hold it in your mouth for a couple of seconds, swirl it around, and then swallow. Another thing as well, so when we're doing whisky nosing and tasting, this is how we do it back home, and it's not the way of drinking whisky. There's no right or wrong way for drinking whisky as long as you enjoy it and, respect it. But one thing we do recommend is putting a little bit of water into your single malt, just to dilute the alcohol and enhance the flavours. You can just pretty much pour a little drop in, and when you do, you can see the whisky trying to, it's like oils breaking up. It's like oils in the water trying to break open. And that's all the aromas releasing. So when you do nose the whisky, it changes completely. And I mean, every whisky will change depending on how much water you put in. So it's personal preference as well. But I always recommend first timers put a bit of water in it, because it's the alcohol that a lot of people are put off by. And by putting that wee bit of water in it, you literally dilute the alcohol and you don't get that spikiness. I call it spikiness. You actually get the aromas from the whisky. So to me, it becomes a lot more nutty and chocolatey and more, bigger. It becomes creamier even on the nose. So.
Brought to you by Cookers, the future of cooking oils.